Okay, hey again, I'm back. I'm starting this video in the upstairs of my house that I live in Southern Ontario. Like I said, I'm a retired home builder. This house was built about 30 years ago. It's plaster. I'm one of the last builders that used plaster. I use tilt and turn windows in here, like wooden plant shelves. But the reason really I'm talking, that I wanted to get into in this video is when you're talking about insulating, it's the system. It's just not putting an R value on the outside. And since the last video I went into kind of a rant about air coming in and going out, I decided to call this video an air in, air out. So a lot of people don't know how much of a difference air density makes, and how much pressure there actually is in around the ceiling of a house, and how much air pressure makes the difference. And I learned this from a friend of mine who got into hang gliding. And he gave us this experiment to do. We had a Volkswagen van again, and he's got a helium balloon. And he says, you stop the vehicle, which way is the balloon going to go? Do you think it's going to go to the front or the back? And we're all thinking, oh yeah, well, you hit the brakes, it's going to go to the front, because we go to the front. And he said, no, because there's the air in the vehicle sloshes to the back of the vehicle. That's it for a hang glider. Gives you an idea that you're actually floating on something. It's like being in water. Sure enough, we tried it out in our van, and put the brakes on. And if you put the brakes on, the helium balloon goes to the back. And you accelerate, it comes up to the front, because when you put the brakes on, the air in your vehicle is being sloshed forward, and you accelerate, it gets sloshed back. And the helium balloon is looking for the lowest air pressure. So the same in a house. Like when houses were built years ago, when they had no vapor barrier, there was a point that was above the ceiling where the inside and outside air pressure was the same. Once they started putting vapor barriers in the house, what happened is the air pressure in a house, because it's hot air, like a hot air balloon, or put air in, if you have like a Japanese, those lanterns are not lanterns, the balloons, you put a candle in the bottom and these things go up in the air. So what happens is you have a fair bit of pressure upstairs. And one of the experiments they did years ago was you would have a positive air pressure upstairs and a negative air pressure downstairs, because the line of equal air pressure to outside was somewhere around the middle of your house, like ceiling of the second floor. And you could test how good your house, the vapor barrier was working in there. So you'd open up an upstairs window and air would go out, because the air pressure upstairs is higher than downstairs. Open up a basement or a main floor window and the air comes in, because the air pressure is lower there. So one of the things that's really important, and we really had to so the ideas about insulating, like I said, you can't just throw R value at it and double wall and double stud construction, and it's the system itself. And so at the cabin, we've left out like light fixtures on the ceiling. One of the most important things is, and you can see here, grab this, and in the ceiling of my house, and that was back years ago, there's no ceiling fan. And I was talking about that before, about how putting a fan in was just stupid. It would be like taking a bag filled with water and poking a hole in it, and you'd see all this water coming out of it, and then squeezing it really hard. That would be turning a fan on and really getting rid of a lot of air. So you have to kind of So you look at that. Can't really use the air-to-air heat exchanger because of where we are. So the system that we have has to be passive. And so I'm going to go into the next part of the video. I'm going to be back up north talking about the stove that we got. Obviously air goes up that pipe all the time, and I just realized this, that when the stove isn't on, we actually got to damper it completely down, because then there's less air leaking out of it, and so less chance of cold air coming in. The other thing, if I were to talk about an air-to-air heat exchanger, the problem with an air-to-air heat exchanger, like the HVAC system, is if you take outside air that's at 60% humidity in the winter, let's say it's 0 degrees Celsius, and you heat that up to 21 degrees Celsius, well, that 60% is now only 30% or 20% air. And I've heard people with the HVAC systems, they'll turn them off in January because they'll start getting bloody noses and that sort of thing. So what I did here, no ceiling fan. I know it's a building infraction, but it's okay. I built the house. I accepted the infraction. Probably when I go to sell it, the people are going to understand that too. So I'm just going to go on just to do one more thing before I go up to the cabin. Okay. I don't even know if I can really show this properly. I'll do the best I can. Anyways, years ago when they asked us to do all this, the vapor barriers and to make all the houses airtight, they because furnaces have to draw air out, they got us to the building inspectors came up with a really good idea, and this actually made a lot of sense. You put a 4-inch pipe coming in from outside that feeds your furnace. Now I'm going to try showing this. I don't know if you'll actually be able to see it, because there's a lot of other plumbing in there too. Okay, I don't know if you can see the pipe there. So it's the galvanized pipe going down, and it's right behind the white pipe. So what that did was, when the furnace came on, they knew that the furnaces need air because they were direct vent furnaces, right? Great idea. The other thing is there was plans around at that time where you could actually build the furnace room and have your cold air inlet coming into your furnace room, because the furnace area is usually an area of the house that's kind of warmer than everywhere else, and you don't really need the heat there. So why not have cold outside air coming in there, and then if your house has a negative air pressure, it's going to come in. Now, if you have a fan going, it's not going to keep up, but however, it's got day and night that it can be drawing air, and once the air pressure in the house is at a negative. So what happened, this is quite a while ago still, is the furnaces, and I'll show you this one again. So you'll see on this furnace here, it has the other pipe. So furnaces came with their own air inlets. And so the building department, being, I don't know, short-sighted, or I don't know, they said, well, you don't have to do those pipes anymore. And so, you know, I'd have guys come in, and I'd say, usually my sheet metal guys, the guys who put the furnace in, say, you know, I want you to rough in a cold air inlet into the basement for air for the house, you know, for combustion. Oh, they say, well, you don't have to, because they have, you know, this one draws air from outside. And I said, well, I don't really care. I want you to do it anyways, because somewhere in the house, there has to be a place where when you're losing air, especially if a wood burning fireplace, where you're losing air, that you need to replenish that air somehow. And like I said, I spoke about the air-to-air heat exchangers, what they cost, and how it's easier to open up a window. So I'm going to jump up to the cottage now, and you'll see what I did up there. So this is our
Kachelofen. And that's the piping where it goes up through the ceiling. We had to switch from it takes like a 4-inch pipe or I don't know, a fairly small pipe. We did get it with an adapter. We bought this, my wife and I, about, I don't know how many years ago. Around 25-30 years ago, and had it stuck in our garage, and then we finally found a place to use it. So Kacheln in German is tiles, ceramic. So this is a huge hunk of metal, a metal lid that enameled, and then you can see in there the sides and the front are ceramic. And the idea behind it is that the ceramics are dense. It heats up and it retains its heat. Not a big spot there for, you know, to watch a fire or anything, but it is extremely heavy and quite a mass of metal and ceramic. Samuel Clements wrote an article or a story about Kachelofen, and I will try and put a link to that or somehow get it so that you can see what it is. But anyways, that's our fire burning heat source. So burning wood is really environmentally friendly because the carbon that it emits is readily absorbed into trees and the trees help get rid of greenhouse gases. So when they used to think that wood was really bad, now all of a sudden they've come completely around and said that's very environmentally friendly. Now the problem is here, and this is kind of what I was talking about before. It's an air in, air out. So yes, we have this stove that gives us heat. The only problem is that the stove needs air to burn and takes air out of our cabin through the chimney and out through the roof. So we had to do something about it. So you have to put an air inlet, and I'm going to have a part of this video is going to have that in it where I talk about this more in detail and about how I did it at my house. So it had to be passive because you can't count on electricity all the time. Plus you don't want to waste electricity, and it's pretty easy to put a passive system in. So I'm just going to go and show you what our passive system looks like. Okay, so this is the back of our cabin. You see the way we've done the siding there. It's hemlock, and we torched it to. I'll probably talk about that in a video on that, but it kind of shrinks the hemlock. You can kind of torch it, and it shrinks the grain, the soft grain in around the hard grain, gets rid of all the fuzz on the outside, and helps protect it from, like rot and stuff like that. Plus it makes it kind of look nice. So to get cold air in, I had to figure out something passive. So what we did is got a 6-inch I forgot the name of the pipe. Hang on. Okay, there it is there. So it's it actually I got to kind of dig that out because it shouldn't be faced up because water can get in there, and we can't have any water getting in there. I told them my kids when they did this, it had to drain out. So anyways, that is where air comes in put a screen on top of it to keep the bugs out. Okay, and that's where this comes into the basement. So what, kind of hard for me to get over there. So anytime the building needs air, it'll come through there and get preheated underground. So there isn't such a heat loss. Okay, so back to the Kuchelofen. So what we're going to end up doing is that cold air inlet. Everything's a mess in here because it's kind of really hard to do any work. Because we're going to, I think the best thing to do is to get in behind it and put an air inlet from the basement to take the outside air and bring it in by the fireplace, just so that it, you know, and a lot of the fresh air is going to go up into combustion, but then some of it's going to be here, and at least it'll be preheated by the Kuchelofen. If anyone has any better ideas where that fresh air, because it can't just circulate in the basement, it has to get up to the main and the upstairs floors. Maybe you could leave a comment on what you think would be the best thing for me to do. Okay, thanks.